The name's Podcast. It's a wonderful podcast. Welcome to a brand new episode of It's a Wonderful Podcast, and if you can't tell already by that terrible Sean Connery impression, Morgan, I don't know why
Sean Connery impression.
Morgan, I don't know why you made me do that for the intro, but we'll move right on. Today, me and my good friend Morgan, the Q to my M, I don't know, does James Bond have any other friends? I don't think so. He's not the kind of guy who has friends.
The Q to your M.
Yeah, we work together.
Am I Q?
Well, obviously.
Why can't I be M? Why can't I be M? I mean, it fits better with my name.
Well, do you want me to be Q? Like, I can't be the geeky guy who makes all the tech.
I'd like you to be Moneypenny, please.
Very well. I could probably rock that look. But anyway, if you haven't guessed...
That's the best thing we could come out of.
Yep, and if you haven't guessed, we're talking about perhaps the world's most well-known spy in his best era, and I'm talking about my favourite film in that era, and of the whole series, From Russia with Love. So, Morgan, James Bond, are you a fan?
I am a fan of James Bond. It's instilled in British people from the age of 2 to be a fan of James Bond. I think, regardless of where you grew up or what you are like, Sean Connery is also my favourite Bond. And From Russia with Love is definitely one of the stronger Bond films. But I know you like to say it is the best of them all. All out, it stands on its own. It is much better than the rest of them. Why do you say that?
Well, I think this movie is a lot better than Dr. No, and it does a nice way of mixing the sort of serious spy thriller nature with the more campy Bond elements. Goldfinger, I feel, goes a little bit too campy for my taste, so From Russia with Love is a bit more of a nice balance for me. You've got the fun characters, the gadgets, the exotic settings, the Bond girl, and of course Mr. Connery, and a really great opening scene. I mean, talk about top Bond opening scenes. I'd put this up as number 1.
Yeah, Bond opening scenes are always nice. They always really do a good job. Bond films are very, very similar to each other. They always do the same things, whether you even notice them or not. They'll always have some sort of jazzy title sequence, and they'll always have a cool opening before that. That's arguably one of the best parts of any Bond film, is the first opening scene. I'm in agreement with you. This is an incredible opening scene, because you get to see the might of Robert Shaw right from the word go. And that never stops in the whole film.
So, Robert Shaw, obviously I know mostly from Jaws, where he plays Quint, but Jaws is from 1975, so we can't talk about that. Talk about a great Bond villain, because I think what makes a really great Bond villain is kind of the simplicity in what their goals are. All Red Grant is, who's the character Robert Shaw plays, he's just an assassin hired by Spectre to kill James Bond. And the very first scene shows Sean Connery Bond wandering around a mansion, and out of nowhere, James Bond is killed. And we see this Red Grant guy, played by Robert Shaw, happily disposing of his victim, and we think, oh no, what's happening here? But we soon discover that Bond was an imposter, and it was all a practice test. So immediately you set the tone right away for a very compelling villain.
Absolutely. I mean, to kill but not kill Bond off in the first scene of his not technically his second ever film, but his second of the franchise, is a bold move, and I'm sure if Twitter was around, people would be going, "Oh God, no! They've killed Bond right at the start of the second Bond film."
I think if Twitter was around back then, they'd be talking about a lot of other stuff James Bond does.
Well, yes, that's
they do
true.
that now, to be fair.
That's oh, that tickled me. Yeah, that's true. But no, I've always admired that sort of really bold opening that that From Russia with Love has. And like I said, it just shows the might and wonderfulness of Robert Shaw right off the bat. And I love that because I love Robert Shaw.
And there's also another villain in here who I don't think we've had enough of in the Bond franchise, like a really compelling female villain who's also a bit of a badass. Rosa Klebb.
Yeah.
Spectre agent, Russian. Doesn't do much to Bond per se in the movie, but she's got this weird presence about her that just makes her as menacing.
She is tough as nails. She is a brutal, regimented woman who is sort of the perfect fit her in the role as slight understudy to the head of Spectre, who at this point we haven't obviously seen Blofeld's face. We don't know he's got that weird scar or anything, but we know he's there. We see the cat, we see the back of the chair, but Klebb's wonderful. I really like her because, like you said, we don't get a lot of Bond villains who are female, let alone wonderful Bond villains who are female, who just really, I don't know, sort of almost
steal the scene they're in.
Yeah, steal the scene, and they just warrant respect wherever they go. And you get that immediately from Klebb in that first scene right after that weird chess match that I forgot was in this, which is fun.
Yeah, and surprisingly, I've always took the Bond films as like sort of episodic, but this one actually does follow on from Dr. No pretty well because obviously in the first film, James Bond has defeated Dr. No in probably one of the most disturbing death scenes I've seen in a Bond film, and he gets boiled alive in a hazmat suit.
It's
not
cool,
a good way to go. It is cool, but it's not a really good way to go.
Do you like that, or the exploding Mr. Big from Live and Let Die?
That is ridiculous.
Where I love it, where he puts the weird compressed air capsule in him, and he floats up and bursts like a helium balloon. A human being doesn't do that. What's going on?
I'll be honest with you, I think one of my favourite death scenes in the whole Bond series is from the Brosnan era.
Okay, go.
And it's just so ridiculous and so cheesy. Cause it's in Tomorrow Never Dies, the main villain Elliot Carver there, because he's just going on to Bond about how he's going to win the plan, and then out of nowhere a giant sea drill comes up and chews him to pieces, and he just stands there waiting for it. But
there's a reason. There's a reason Brosnan Bond films just nearly killed everything, I think.
Yeah, I tend to find that most eras of Bonds have their bad movies, and they have their good ones, and they have their standout ones. A lot of people think Goldfinger is Connery's standout, but I'd argue this one's a little bit better. Maybe that's just my taste, but I think we can all agree his worst one is probably Thunderball. That movie's freaking ridiculous.
Yeah, that's true. Actually, I was thinking then to myself, what is Connery's low point? It is Thunderball. Thunderball's boring.
You don't want a James Bond film to be boring.
You don't, and I know that Thunderball always gets its credit for having those massively impressive underwater scenes that are entirely shot underwater. And I get that. I get it's a decent technical feat to do so much shooting underwater, but it just slows everything down so much. I've tried watching Thunderball a number of times and just haven't been able to pay attention. And it's unusual for that, because usually Bond movies really just, you want to watch them because you know that things are cool things, weird things, they're gonna just happen. Thunderball doesn't have that. From Russia with Love definitely has that.
And it's quite a simple plot too, and From Russia with Love. I mean, you've just got Red Grant coming after James Bond, and James Bond has been tasked to go find the Lecter cryptographic device. And that's all you need.
Exactly. exactly. And Spectre are playing Russia and the UK against one another in their own little game as overlords of everything that Spectre like to be, because Blofeld is a madman.
And I must say, this version of Spectre seems a lot more menacing than the one we've got in the Craig era, where it does feels like they just don't know what to do with it.
Oh, it's because 60s Spectre was around during the time of the Cold War. The reason Bond was so popular at this time was because of the Cold War, and it just felt so real. So it feels appropriate for something like this to be in the time you're watching it in. To put Spectre in something now, and I know the Cold War's happening again, but, let's not go into politics. I know that. But in 2015 or whenever, when Spectre came out, the actual organisation of Spectre, as it was set up and as it was portrayed, didn't feel real, unlike a Spectre in the 60s Bond films, which does feel like it would have existed at that time.
And I don't believe we even know who Blofeld is. Maybe we get like a little hints of him here and then, but mostly this movie is Red Grant and Rosa Klebb.
Oh yeah, we just get the cat, the nice white cat of Blofeld in this,
which is not Dr. Evil. Some people think that's Dr. Evil originated that.
I know, but these people should also realise that Blofeld is Dr. Evil. Or Dr. Evil is Blofeld. That's the point of Dr. Evil.
Exactly. But,
yeah. All you get of Blofeld in this is the cat, and he's always referred to as number one, rather than his name, which is cool. Rosa Klebb is number 3, I believe.
And the guy from Thunderball is number 2, I believe.
Yes, he is. Who's number 4?
Red Grant should have been number 2, I reckon.
Red Grant's just an assassin.
Number 4,
number 4?
I'm pretty sure that was Dr. No.
That would make sense, actually. Fair enough. All very interlinked are the Connery Bond films.
Yeah, and it doesn't feel forced like the Craig era does, because they try to be interlinked, but it just feels like they threw it in at the last second. These ones knew exactly what they were building towards, and each film, even Goldfinger, which moves away from the Spectre stuff, it still feels completely entertaining as a standalone Bond film, but From Russia With Love I think I like more because it has that Spectre connection, and you're kind of exploring more of the world building with Bond. And you can't have a great Bond film, of course, without some gadgets.
No, not at all.
In this one we have a concealed throwing knife, gold sovereigns, a special tear gas trap, and an AR-7 sniper rifle with an infrared scope. It's not quite the exploding pens or the invisible cars that you might be used to with James Bond, but the gadgets work for this movie, I reckon. They're really fun.
But it all fits into a nice little suitcase.
Indeed. I mean, that's just what you want. You need your suitcase to carry your exploding pens without anyone bothering you. That's what it's like to be James Bond.
Practical gadgetry from Q in From Russia With Love. Well done, Q. You've outdone yourself. Fold your clothes up. Put your socks in next to your throwing knife and your sniper. It just all works.
Yes, and I feel we can't really talk about this movie without mentioning our female lead, Tatiana Romanova, which is the most Russian-sounding name I think I've heard from any movie.
Yes, they have clearly just gone, what is a Russian name? I know. And they have literally picked the most Russian-sounding name. If you were to pick a Spanish guy, you'd call him Jose, and Jose Rafael
Rodriguez
Soldado or something. Rodriguez. Yeah, I don't know why they have to overly stereo.
A Bond villain.
Yeah, I don't even want to think about that, to be honest. At the minute, maybe that can be when we get silly in a bit.
Yes,
but no, I Bond. 60s Bond always likes to stereotype nationalities and things, and I know Russia was an enemy and all that business.
If you think that's bad, you should see how it is in Ian Fleming's books.
Yeah,
it's way worse.
I mean, it's bad in all of them, really. I mean, I am an unashamed fan of Live and Let Die.
Which is so stereotypical.
Which is so horrendous. It's to the point where it's racist. To the point where it gets legitimately racist and uncomfortable. But I don't know. Luckily, we'll never cover Live and Let Die on this show.
Yes, unless we start a Bond podcast, but I doubt that's going to happen.
Doubt that's going to happen. I'm not a huge enough Bond fan to start a Bond podcast, I don't think.
There's something interesting I found out about Tatiana Romanova in this. She's played by Daniela Bianchi, but she's voiced by another actress. Like that was weird to me. Like maybe it's because she couldn't speak any English or something. But in that case, why not just cast a Russian actor who can also speak English?
It's more. I think doing that's more common than a lot of people realise in films of an age. I swear it was actually the film we did last week, Witchfinder General, where John Stern, the sidekick to Vincent Price, is played by one guy and actually voice overdubbed by another for no real reason. I don't know. Maybe I don't know. I don't know why it was done. It doesn't necessarily bother me in From Russia with Love. I think she does a great job. She's one of my favourite Bond girls because she legitimately does things.
Oh yeah, we'll get to that when we talk about favourite scenes. But speaking of which, you love those confrontations where James Bond is up against the bad guy, and I think the train scene with Red Grant, it's got to be up there, at least like top 3.
The train scene with Red Grant, the fight on the Orient Express, whatever you want to call it, is the best Bond fight.
Not the spin-off to Agatha Christie's novel, but it fits there.
The murder on the Orient Express, the fight with Robert Shaw on the Orient Express, Agatha Christie's sequel. No, not even a little bit. No, it is my favourite Bond fight of all Bond fights in the history of Bond, or at least the Bond films I've watched. It's wonderful. It feels like it legitimately has stakes. Robert Shaw, I keep calling him Robert Shaw, Red Grant is a better fighter than Bond.
It just works so well because it's so simple. It's just shot in the dark, 2 guys brawling it out. There's no need for like explosions or big fancy things, and funnily enough, the way James Bond beats Red Grant is actually by beating him at his own game, which I love. Like strangling him with his own tourniquet and using some of his gadgets to get an up on him. That's classic Bond to me. It's not only can he defeat his bad guys, but he uses their strengths against them.
Yeah, that's definitely true, and it has to be that. It has to be the case to do that in the case of Red Grant, because Red Grant he's a deadlier person than Bond. And Bond, of course, is Bond. That's the usual reason Bond wins anything, because he's Bond. He's like Batman in that way. You just don't kill him because he's Bond. But Red Grant comes the closest out of anyone, I think, in the history of Bond to actually killing Bond.
Besides the guy who directed Quantum of Solace, he comes closest to killing Bond.
Yes. Or the guy who directed Die Another Day, or any of the Brosnans.
I'll give Brosnan GoldenEye, but the rest of his movies are pretty poor.
I don't even like GoldenEye that much. I know Sean Bean, oh yeah, isn't it nice, but yeah, I don't like Brosnan as Bond, really. I think that's my problem. Anyway, Connery, much better.
Connery is Bond.
Connery is Bond. There's only one Bond, and it's Sean Connery. There's only one Bond that truly sort of brings all that you want from Bond. The suaveness, the power, the intimidation, and the quick one-liners. Connery has them all. All the others only have a select amount of those qualities, but Connery has them all.
There is something really funny about this. This is actually how I discovered From Russia with Love when I was younger. I don't know if you ever played any of the James Bond video games.
I did not, sadly. Not even Everybody Loves GoldenEye. No, I didn't.
Well, there's some pretty good Bond video games. Everything or Nothing is really cool. It has Willem Dafoe as a bad guy, but they released a version for the PS2 of From Russia with Love. And, you know, it even has, like, Sean Connery's likeness and Robert Shaw's likeness and all that in there. But I think this represents a problem that some of the later Bond films have. They feel the need to add in unnecessary action sequences, because on the train level where you fight Red Grant, rather than just being a one-on-one brawl, it has to have the addition of him getting run over by the train.
Oh.
And then have him show up at the end on Spectre's base in a giant octopus robot, which... where did this come from?
What? I'm now imagining Robert Shaw in the mecha suit from Aliens.
That's pretty much what it looks like.
That is ridiculous. What has happened there?
I don't know. Maybe they were trying to make it more action-packed for a video game, but still, it's weird.
That's madness. I tell you what, that is one thing I also do like about From Russia with Love is none of the action scenes that are in there feel like, oh, let's throw this action scene in. They actually make sense with what's going on, and it doesn't overload you with action either. It is more of for such a sort of, like you said, not a complicated plot or anything like that. I feel like From Russia with Love is a far more story-focused, or at least character-focused Bond film than an all-out action-adventure, which something like Goldfinger, which only came the year after, I think that is more of an action-adventure, and that's maybe why loads and loads of people prefer Goldfinger above this or whatever else. Maybe
I know Billy definitely does.
Yeah, maybe that's also because of what you said before as well, where Goldfinger takes a break from all the Spectre stuff that you get in every other Connery Bond film. Even in Diamonds Are Forever, Blofeld is the villain. So
yeah,
maybe that's why people love Goldfinger so much. Don't get me wrong, I do love Goldfinger as well. I think Goldfinger's great, but I really do like Spectre as Bond's villain. So, yeah.
I mean, Blofeld's like his Joker, so you kind of need that in there.
Definitely. Goldfinger is like Batman's... Who is Goldfinger like in terms of Batman?
The Penguin?
Yeah, that's a good shout, actually. Goldfinger...
I always compare it to Spider-Man villains. If Blofeld is Norman Osborn, then Goldfinger's Doc Ock.
That makes more sense, to be fair. Let's stick with that analogy.
But there's also another favourite scene I have here before we go into your favourite scenes. Although I'm pretty sure, based on what you said about Rosa Klebb, this might be in one of your favourite scenes.
Probs.
And it's the final confrontation with her.
Yeah.
That doesn't take place in a big location, just in a hotel room. Mm-hmm. Rosa Klebb has disguised herself as a maid. She's walking in on Tatiana and Bond, and she has the simplest of weapons, a poisoned dagger in her shoe that she repeatedly tries to kick James Bond with, only to have Tatiana Romanova actually be the one to take her out with her own poisoned knife. So once again goes to show the best Bond characters use the villain's strengths as weaknesses, and I think that's really awesome from a writing standpoint.
I also think it's awesome from a Bond girl actually doing something standpoint, because Tatiana has a legitimate character moment there where she has to choose. Does she shoot her compatriot and who she has been quote-unquote working for, but not knowing that she was actually working for Spectre? Or does she shoot Bond? Obviously, she's not going to shoot Bond. We all know that.
This is not the opening of Skyfall. Bond is not getting shot.
No, but I do like that final confrontation. I like that when Bond's putting the chair, he picks up the chair to distance himself from Klebb and her wild kicking feet. It just reminds me of lion taming, and which then sort of that is Rosa Klebb a lion, a symbolic lion? Who knows? She might be powerful, but just sort of stands there being a bit intimidating. I think Rosa Klebb is a lion. I think that's what I'm taking from Russia with Love. I think there's a reason it looks like lion taming at the end.
We'll be honest, Lottie Lenya does a great job as the character. Like, definitely one of the great character actresses.
Yeah, she certainly does. She's wonderful, despite her somewhat ridiculous accent.
Yes, but that's just what you're going to get with James Bond, let's be honest. I mean, Robert Shaw is from Manchester, and he's doing a Russian accent as well.
Robert Shaw. Now I knew we were going to start talking about this. Robert Shaw is not from Manchester. Robert Shaw is from West Orton, like me. Robert Shaw and I are from the same place. He's literally the only thing we have. He's the only thing we have ever had. Robert Shaw is from West Orton. The local pub is named after him.
Do they have like pictures of him as Red Grant?
They have pictures of him. The menu has a shark on the front.
That is fantastic.
For reasons that will be obvious to everybody. Robert Shaw is the only thing West Orton has going for it. We all unabashedly love Robert Shaw in West Orton, and that is another reason why From Russia with Love has a bit of bias to me, because whenever Robert Shaw is just like, yes, he is a reminder that people from West Orton can do great things, and that's good for our little town.
Indeed, and you know what? This actually just came to me. For cosplay wise, for you specifically, Red Grant would probably be a pretty cool cosplay.
Do you think I could get away with Red Grant?
I mean, you've got that cold stare he has.
That's true, but I would not be able to be punched in the stomach with a knuckle duster and survive, basically.
Probably not.
Unlike Red Grant, who of course gets punched in the stomach with a knuckle duster and doesn't even flinch. I'd like to think it was a real knuckle duster, and Robert Shaw was just that badass.
I think that's a sign of things to come with future Bond villains like Oddjob, and weirdly enough, since Robert Shaw here, the henchman Jaws, who is pretty much unstoppable.
Jaws. Sorry, that was another. He just tickled me. That. Well done. Good. What a fantastic mix of whatever you were talking about there. That's just great. I love that.
So
Jaws.
I'm curious now, buddy. Where would you say From Russia with Love ranks in terms of how you enjoy Bond films?
Well, I don't care for ranking so much.
Yeah,
but
just
I'll toy with the idea. It is. I think it's one of the more enjoyable to watch. I feel like I can watch From Russia with Love more than a lot of Bond films. I think it's got some of the strongest performances in there. I think the title song is also great.
Oh yeah.
Maybe not as big and iconic as Goldfinger or whatever, or something. Other Bond, Live and Let Die, even as we were talking about Live and Let Die before,
or Madonna's Die Another Day.
Oh no, no. But I like that. I love Robert Shaw. Obviously, Connery is the best Bond by far. I don't care what anybody else has to say. So saying all that, From Russia with Love, you're looking at top 3, if not best, here.
Yeah, I think it's a definite improvement over Doctor No as well.
Yeah, and I mean, I like Doctor No. I mean, maybe you should explain a bit why Doctor No doesn't quite tickle your fancy, to use a ridiculous term.
I mean, I think it's fine, but as an introduction to Bond, I don't find it that compelling. Like, I think with a few little alterations of the story, they could have kicked off the Bond franchise with From Russia with Love.
Yeah, but the sequel's always better. That's not true.
Sometimes, yeah. And Doctor No, I find to be quite. He's the ultimate epiphany of like that cheesy Bond villain that everyone makes fun of.
Doctor No is a remarkably monotone man.
Yeah,
who just
he doesn't
talks
really have
very
as much
quietly.
personality.
No, he has nowhere near as much personality as Klebb or Red Grant. I tell you what, a thing I do love about Red Grant as well in this is when Bond, I should say, when Bond first meets him on the train, and he's just playing a nice, charming English gentleman, and then he just turns on the intimidation and aggression straight away.
Great villain, right there.
I just think he goes back and forth from doing that really well, and you can notice exactly when he's decided to go in for the kill. He's going to play down his pleasant, I'm just here for a nice conversation and dinner kind of guy, and then he just whack, get the gun out, bang.
Yeah.
I'm going to kill you, Bond. I love that scene as well. I love everything to do with Grant and Bond on the train, from just the talk between them, just the back and forth. I think he's just two great actors performing great dialogue in a great spy film.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. And I'm going to propose a little question here because I'm running out of things to say about From Russia with Love. But since we love talking about Bond villains and how great characters there are, let's say we have the power to cast a new Bond villain in our image. Who would you go for?
In our image?
Well, just like if we were doing a Bond film, who would we cast as a villain?
Well, who would I cast as a Bond villain? Well, are you going to make me come out and say my somewhat controversial opinion on the current state of the Bond franchise?
Go for it, because I'm not a big fan of how it's turned out either.
We don't need another Bond film.
We don't. It can end.
The franchise should. The franchise should just say goodbye, not even farewell. It should say goodbye, because we just don't need it. Bond doesn't. He doesn't work as a character in today's culture. He just doesn't. He needs to be in the Cold War era. And I know there's the famous line from GoldenEye from M, where she calls Bond a relic of the Cold War, a sexist, misogynistic dinosaur. And that is what Bond is. That is what Bond is. You can't get away from that. To try and make him... to try and make the character of Bond not a womanizer, or not to have these really, occasionally very uncomfortable sexist tendencies, is to make him not James Bond.
I definitely agree with that.
And today, Bond has to be he can't be Superman, and Superman, granted, is a bit flawed. I know I say it just as a term. But he can't do everything. He can't be a perfect human being. Bond is not a perfect human being. He has these bad traits to him. And, Daniel Craig's Bond, while two of the films I really, really like, it could be any spy. It doesn't have to be Bond. It could literally be anyone. It could be a guy called,
John Wick.
you know, it could be John Wick.
John Wick could be the next Bond figure. Let's just do that.
Yeah, I think that's a perfectly good. I think carry on with something like John Wick, but Bond can die. So, going back to the question, I don't want to see any more Bond films. So, I wouldn't cast any villain, which is a really cop-out answer, but at least I think I've explained why.
Well, I'll say for a villain in the Connery era, Vincent Price would have been awesome.
So you were talking about this last week, I knew it had come back.
Yep. But if I was to cast a current Bond villain now, I've been saying this for ages, because I think this actor just has the perfect menace and the perfect appeal to be a Bond villain. Tilda Swinton.
Yeah.
Like, if you're going to make Daniel Craig go out on a high note, make him go up against Tilda Swinton.
You have been championing that casting for many a month, a year. Since I've known you, I think you've been saying Tilda Swinton as Bond villain.
Yes, and I will go on record saying that casting choice impressed Jeremy Johns on an episode of Collider Movie Talk, so it's invalidated.
Oh, well. Must be an old episode of Movie Talk there, but that's beside the point.
And to throw some shade here,
shade.
When me and you first met and we fought on Fan Friction,
Nolan hated me.
It was we had the question, best Bond film.
Obviously, because it was an all-British fight, so, people are stereotyping. Much like Bond.
And I reckon if Jack Shipley is listening to this, I pulled a rookie mistake. I picked Skyfall as the best Bond film, when really I might have had a chance to win if I had picked From Russia with Love. So, yeah.
Yeah, but what I picked that day was Goldfinger. Now, I don't believe that to be true. But it's all about the game and how you play it.
We can all agree that License to Kill wasn't the right answer, though. Sorry, Holmes.
Certainly not License to Goddamn Kill. Good film. Not Bond, but, good film.
That feels like more of a John Wick style movie than a Bond movie.
It's all about Dalton. Dalton just murders people.
And he's kind of scary. He'd be a better Bond villain than Bond. And Hot Fuzzy's basically a Bond villain.
That's what they should do to see Bond off. Do like one of those weird things that I know happens in Doctor Who, where they have like all Bonds come back together, or not Roger Moore, sadly.
The ones who are alive.
The ones who are alive, and just fight each other.
Do you believe
I'd
in
be
the
happy
whole
with
James
that.
Bond is a code name, not an actual person theory?
Oh, can we talk about this, actually? Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
I do believe in that. I have grown...
I mean, it does make sense.
I have grown to believe in that. I was adamantly against that theory for the longest time. But I did a bit more looking up and reading on it, and it makes a hell of a lot more sense than if it weren't that. It really does.
That to you just means that Daniel Craig is not the only James Bond.
Certainly not.
He's fine, but he's no Connery.
He's no Connery. He's no Roger Moore either. Nah, people might hate Roger Moore for being the least intimidating human being in the history of intimidating human beings. But he's fun.
Well, let's not forget Roger Moore produced the James Bond movie that has Christopher Walken as a Bond.
But
that sums up his entire era.
But he also produced the Bond movie that had Christopher Lee as the villain.
I'll give you that. Man with a Golden Gun is excellent.
So, each Christopher to their
enough,
own.
On that, Scaramanga and Red Grant, kind of similar.
Yeah, both very deadly assassins, although Scaramanga was doing it off his own back. Red Grant... With the Bond film with the type of Bond film that From Russia with Love is, he was of course hired by the higher power of Spectre. And I've just actually realised that, you know, the residence where Grant is, and you see him for the first time, and when he gets that ridiculous massage from that woman, that is just why is that in there? There's no need for it, really.
Maybe Robert Shaw just wanted a massage and demanded in his contract it had to be filmed.
How Robert Shaw of him? I don't know if Robert Shaw was like that. I don't really know. But that place is apparently called Spectre Island.
That is a weird name if you're trying to be a secret organisation.
I'm sure it is referred to as Spectre Island when Kleb shows up in the helicopter there. What a silly name.
Oh, James Bond.
Bond is inherently silly. Even when it's very serious, it's inherently silly.
Yeah.
Siri? It's not Siri at all.
Oh, God.
If it was Siri, that'd be...
Oh, don't give them ideas. They'll replace Q with a Siri app.
No, Q's that floppy-haired guy now. What's his name?
Ben Whishaw.
Ben Whishaw. There you go.
I mean,
floppy hair.
Desmond Llewellyn, or even John Cleese, I can see him more as Q than this guy.
Desmond Llewellyn is the only Q, as far as I'm concerned. I'm a big old Bond fan compared to anything else. Purely because, like I said before, I look at the sexism in Bond as, and I know this might not necessarily be true, but I look at it as a flaw of Bond's character rather than how the film was made, if you know what I mean. The film was just made with inherent sexism, because it probably was. The director probably was a bit of a misogynist. I don't know that for a fact at all. I'm just throwing shade at people unnecessarily right now. But
they're dead. I don't think they'll mind.
Well, can dead people not sue you? Pretty sure that's
that sounds like a weird Scooby-Doo episode, haunted by the ghost of the From Russia with Love director.
Any law professionals out there? Can you be sued by a dead person? Is that a stupid question? Because it feels like something that would actually be legitimate. I don't know what I'm even talking about anymore. Nolan, please take over. I'm sure people got the gist of what I was trying to say.
I will happily take over. So, I think From Russia with Love, pretty great Bond film. It's my personal favourite. I can see it's one of your personal favourites. We might even talk some more Bond films on this show. We'll probably talk Goldfinger at some point. We will definitely not be talking about Thunderball, because my God, that would be a chore to watch again.
No point in talking about Thunderball. It'd be 50 minutes to an hour of us just going, oh my
this
God,
movie
please end.
I mean, if you want to see a good Bond film with an underwater setting, just watch The Spy Who Loved Me.
A very good idea.
Yeah, and that's a Moore one too, and it's pretty good.
It is.
And so I think that sums up our thoughts on From Russia with Love. Morgan, what have you got going on the Purple Dawn website that's not this podcast?
Well, I'm just thinking for the first, if that is all I wanted to say about From Russia with Love, we've talked about the train, we've talked about the last scene with the poisoned, the shoe that's wonderful. Anything else? Wanted to bring up, actually, another way it ties into Dr. No, which is the girl you see Bond with when we first see Bond is the same girl who asks him, what his name is, and we hear James Bond for the first time. It's the same woman.
And we've got to mention that. I can't believe we forgot that. That's an iconic film moment.
Her name is Sylvia in the franchise. I don't know the actress's name.
It's a much classier name than the next Bond girl's name.
Oh, certainly. Certainly.
And you guys
Sylvia,
know what that is.
We have Sylvia, or mind you, look who the main Bond girl is in Doctor No. It's Honey Rider.
Oh my god.
Tatiana has the most.
Oh, God.
Tatiana has the most normal, and it's a ridiculously Russian stereotype name, but it's the most normal. And we needn't say Goldfinger's Bond girl name because, you know, it's next level silly.
I find Halle Berry's one hilarious. Her name is literally Jinx because she's unlucky. Like, what?
That film was unlucky.
It's so stupid, but it's weirdly fun in a stupid kind of way.
That was it from. I think we are done. What would you ask me? Hi. Oh dear, I'm in a silly mood. I thought we wanted to talk about Raoul as well.
Raoul would probably be a very terrifying James Bond villain.
Obviously. He'd be a puppet master.
His plan would be writing fan fiction of every person in Spectre.
Oh dear. He would definitely. You're definitely a puppet master, aren't you, Raoul? Talking directly to you.
Yeah.
Now. You're definitely a puppet master. You wouldn't be hired muscle or anything so low. You'd be right.
Although I do think he could pull off an odd job cosplay.
I don't want to see that. I don't want to see Raoul in a bowler hat.
Although, if we're talking about Bond villain cosplays, the worst one is in Die Another Day, where the Korean guy cosplays as a white guy for the rest of the movie.
Please.
See,
what about
ridiculous Bond
what about in Live and Let Die, where Mr. Big puts on a disguise as another black man?
Oh, that was weird.
What's going on, Bond? What's going on? Anyway, what I'm doing aside from this delightful show is, as you all know, ghost stories. I like reading them, and there was another one up this week, obviously, twice a week. Wednesdays and Sundays, new story readings, I should say, go up. And what was this Wednesday? Oh yeah, The Telltale Heart by Edgar Allan Poe.
One of my favourites.
Which is a wonderful little story. I read that for everyone's listening pleasure. And yeah, that was up. I don't know what Sundays will be. I definitely have it, but I just haven't looked. It'll be great. It'll be scary. Enjoy it. You can find all that on if you're on YouTube listening to this, just go on this channel's featured channels, and Purple Dawn is me. And if you are on audio only, just search Purple Dawn on YouTube, and you'll find my channel and all my lovely ghost story readings. Nolan, you also do things.
I do. Stories as Lessons is going to be back sometime this week with episode 5. I'm currently doing a lot of schoolwork right now, so it's a little bit hard to balance it all in. It will be focusing on Morgan's favourite horror movie of all time, Stephen King's It from 2017.
Oh dear me. Do you know what? I honestly believed you were telling the truth then. And I got excited, and you crushed me, and you stomped on me, and I'm upset. I'm not upset.
I'll probably... I might do a Stories as Lessons eventually on one of your favourite horror films, but before we go, actually, you remember my friend Emily, right?
Yes.
Emily is a massive James Bond fan. I think even bigger than me. Like, she loves the character. And so I kind of just wanted to give her a bit of a shout out, because I told her we were doing From Russia with Love, and she got pretty excited, and I know you guys have talked as well.
Shout out.
Yeah, Emily, there's your shout out.
Shouted at. Consider yourself shouted at. Not at, necessarily. I don't know. Nolan might shout at you. If he does, don't let him. Don't let him shout at you.
I wouldn't. I wouldn't shout at Emily. She's
Don't go
delightful.
around. Why are you going around shouting at poor people? There's no need for it. Stop doing it.
It was Raoul. It was all Raoul.
It was Raoul's fault. Oh,
That damn puppet master.
Hashtag blame Raoul. No.
Oh, God.
No. Anyway, you were
But,
talking
if
about
you-
stories as lessons, which is a very good thing you do.
Yes, my Last Jedi video is now my most popular Stories as Lessons episode, and it's actually having quite a good response so far. Some people are discussing the movie and not just yelling at each other about it.
Surely to goodness not.
And I want to give a little bit of a plug to something I've been reading. As you guys know, I read those things called books, just in case no one was aware. I've been reading...
Is that like a menu?
Yeah. I've been reading this book called Children of Blood and Bone by Tomi Adeyemi, and I've discovered another podcast about writing called 88 Cups of Tea, which is really great if you want to get into like creative writing and stuff. And Children of Blood and Bone, I think, is going to be a massive hit. So definitely look out for that. And if you want to give yourself a little bit of a shocker, try reading some of the Ian Fleming Bond novels. And as always, you can find me at NolanDean27 and find more of the show at It's a Wonderful One and, of course, on YouTube. And if that's everything, buddy, I'm willing to let you read me out this time.
Please, for the love of God. You are Scottish. Sean Connery is Scottish. Stop trying to do an impression of Sean Connery's Bond when just your voice will be able to do that.
But it's such a great voice to do.
But not when it's done so badly that you're doing it. Oh my God, I've never heard a worse Bond impression in my entire life. I'm just confused. I don't know what's just happened. I do not know what's just happened. I
think it's years of my dad doing that voice.
Probably.
He's a big Bond fan too.
I will see us out though. I will be so kind as to see us out. I will say before that, if you are on YouTube, please sub to the channel and leave a like and comment both your favourite Bond film and your favourite part of From Russia with Love. And also let us know if you think Nolan's impression is the worst impression you've ever heard. If you are on Apple Podcasts, audio only, rate and review and do all that nice stuff. And regardless of what platform you are listening to this on, share it around with all your buddies if you have any buddies, which I hope you do. If you don't, then we'll be your friends, or at least I will. If you'll have me. You probably won't. You probably get annoyed with me after an hour. But
I'll be like Martin Garrix and be "We are your friends." So
you can do nothing. You just shout at people apparently. Yes, that is everything. Find me on Twitter at the Purple Dawn with a 3 instead of the E in the, because Patrice Evra. Find the podcast at It's a Wonderful One. And until next week, where I've just realised we haven't even talked about what we're going to do next week.
Oh yes, it's called Low Dawn, right?
So what? Yeah. Oh, for goodness sake, that's ridiculous. If you haven't realised today, during this entire recording, Nolan has been being ridiculous and making me shake my head at him a lot. And
I do that a lot anyway.
Yes,
we don't even have to be talking about Bond for that.
That's true, but it just so happens that you've been doing it a lot today, and now I'm whispering. So next week, I have chosen our first Western, and it's going to be High Noon, which is a nice, taut little Western. Not as big and bold and fancy as a lot of other Westerns, but one that I think has one of the best characters in the entire genre. Gary Cooper's Marshall. I think he's wonderful.
And you can look forward to some impressions of Gary Cooper
Please
next
don't
week.
do any impressions of Gary Cooper. But yeah, that is next week, high noon. This has been From Russia With Love. Nolan Dean has been himself,
Ridiculous.
as he always is. And yeah, bye guys. It's been a pleasure again.
Goodbye.